Alright, y'all. Welcome back. We're gonna get into a story I've been wanting to get into for a very, very long time. And I'm free! Free falling! Yeah. I'm about to fill you guys in on some lore that I've been wanting to tell this story on the podcast for 3 years now. So, I'm like, where do I even begin? And the reason I didn't want to tell this story for a long time is because it's technically like I could be outing someone who hasn't come to terms with their sexuality. So I'm not going to name names and I'm not going to give any hints as to who this person is. I've never had this person on any social media. My friends have never met this person, so no one should know who it is. And this man did me so dirty. Did me so dirty, you guys. It's crazy. Okay. Let's just hop right into it. All right. And if this man tries to sue me, this is all alleged, and I'm literally just making this up for entertainment purposes. Okay. So allegedly. 3 years ago, let's see, how old was I? I was 19. I was 19 at the time. I met this man. We're going to call this man Jake. Jake. All right, so I met Jake. I met Jake at this party, and Jake and I hit it off instantly. All right, he was a stoner. He had a beanie on. You know, I thought he was cool. I thought he was grunge, alt boy vibes, whatever. We hit it off. We exchanged Snapchats as 19-year-olds do. And the following Friday, he messages me and he's like, "Oh, do you want to come out to where I live and like we can go smoke on this bench in the woods? It'll be super cool." And I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds freaking sick." Now, back then, this is actually so bad. I would literally meet up with whatever guy anywhere to like smoke or like hang out or to get an interaction because I was so lonely. Like I didn't care. And that's horrible. I could have died. I could have died so many times, you guys. It's actually horrible. And I go hang out with this man. Now, we had a great time. We smoked in the woods under the stars. It actually wasn't scary. Hey. Now, right then, we were attached at the hip. We were attached at the freaking hip. So things were going really good, and we start dating, like pretty quick in. And pretty much every day I was driving an hour to get to his house and stay with him for a couple nights. Very quickly, this became a codependent relationship. It became a toxic relationship. This man would not eat unless I made him food. This man would not shower unless I showered with him. This man would not do his college homework unless I did it for him. I was this man's mother. I was fully his mother. It wasn't fun for me. Not at all. But I didn't realize that at the time that was toxic. I just thought, I liked taking care of people, and I also liked people taking care of me, so I didn't see it for the problem that it was. But he would have night terrors every night, every single night, where he would like kick and scream and like shake in his sleep. Like this man had demons. All right? And he would always wake me up from them, which I didn't mind, you know. I would just help him. Sorry, I'm killing a spider. I would just help him through it. And, you know, because obviously if I'm dating this person, I want to make them feel better any way that I can. And sometimes that was at my own expense. Also, like, into our relationship, when I would say I love you, this man had the hardest time saying I love you to me. Which is such a red flag. Like, that's crazy. Like, he'd have to whisper it because he couldn't say it. Like, Megan, what were you doing? That's crazy. So that's like the first red flag. And the fact that he couldn't do anything unless I did it with him. Another red flag was So he had a lot of guy friends, but he started cutting off a lot of guy friends because they would do something to him, which, I support. Sometimes you got to cut people off. I've cut so many people off the last year because they were horrible people and they just cared about doing drugs and drinking and stealing. So, I get it. I'm not one to judge for that. But he had this one best friend, right? Now, we're going to name this man Richard. Yeah, we're going to name this man Richard. So Jake had a best friend named Richard, right? Now, I got along with all of Jake's guy friends. They were all really kind to me. They all smoked too, so it was just, it was good vibes. But Richard, there was something really off about Richard, and it wasn't the fact that he was a narcissist and that he was covered in tattoos and he owed pretty much everyone more than $200 and would never pay anyone back and just get more tattoos because he's that much of a narcissist. But something that was really weird was every time Jake and I would hang out with Richard alone, I felt invisible, but not in like a jealous way where it's like, oh, like I need my boyfriend's attention to be all on me. No, it was something really weird and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. The energy felt weird. Jake was acting weird and it made me just, start to be more aware of this as time went on and on and on. And the more we all hung out alone, the more I realized something was off. Something was really off here. Now, Jake's best friend Richard, I really liked him at first. He's so charismatic, as a narcissist is, of course. And they had a business together, allegedly. Allegedly, they had a YouTube channel together. And they were bound by a contract that they were business partners. Now that can already be pretty messy for a friendship. It was funny because, as I said before, Jake would cut off his guy friends if they did like one little thing to him. If they were like a little bit mean or like did something, whatever. Now, Jake knew Richard treated him like shit. Richard would treat Jake like shit. Okay? And I was in a relationship with Jake. So Richard, for example, one time we were all at Jake's house. Richard just stopped by randomly and was like, oh, I need to film this video for my documentary. He had dog poop on his shoes, tracked it all throughout Jake's really nice mom's house. Now, if I spilled a little bit of water, Jake would freak out on me, yell at me, be like, you need to clean that up, like my mom's gonna freak out, blah, 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 right? Richard over here is tracking poop throughout the house, and Jake would never stick up for himself to Richard, even though he had no problem with doing it with anyone else, including me. And just like didn't even say anything, cleaned it up himself. He would let Richard walk all over him. And the more I started to notice this, the more I took note of it. Time went on. I started feeling really invisible when I would hang out with them. It was like Jake only paid attention to Richard. Richard only paid attention to Jake. Richard would touch Jake. Really weird. And it's not just like guys being friends. Like obviously they fuck around. Like I know that. But this felt different. It was like, Richard with his hand on Jake's upper thigh. And it like wasn't a joke. Like it was weird. There was weird energy. And Jake would just shut down anytime Richard was around emotionally. And I was like, something's really, really off here. And then I started to think to myself, what if Jake is in love with Richard? And I was like, no, I'm crazy. I literally gaslighted myself. I was like, no, I'm just crazy and insecure. But then, as time went on, more and more things started to happen. And I would get gut feelings of like something weird's going on. For example, my mom was in the hospital. So obviously I call him as my boyfriend and I'm like, can I come over? Like I'm freaking out. I was crying. And this man tells me, well, I'm playing video games with Richard. Sir, what do you mean? Sir, what do you mean? Like if your girlfriend's mom is in the hospital and she's crying because they OD'd, you would think he like would like put the video games down. You would think like playing video games with Richard wouldn't be as important, right? Like I told him I was gonna be there 20 minutes later than I was gonna be there, And I remember my gut instinct was like telling me something was wrong, and I ran up to his room, opened the door to like, I was basically ready to like catch them in the act of something, right? When I barged through the door, they weren't playing video games, but also nothing was happening. But they seemed like really shocked and like weird. It seemed very, very weird, right? So I was like, noted, okay. The week after that, I help Jake move into an apartment of his own, which happened to be across the street from Richard's new apartment. How funny! How hilarious! How hilarious! So I help him move everything into his apartment. And the first time we were there, we go over to Richard's house. Oh, same thing happens. I'm completely invisible and I'm having all these thoughts. My mind's racing. I'm seeing Richard touch Jake very weirdly and like on his thigh, and it's just like something's really off. Like something's not right here. So instantly I'm like, something's really weird. Okay, and I felt completely invisible. My body was shaking. I was having like an out of body experience where I was like, my gut was screaming at me that something was wrong. So after that, we go back to Jake's apartment, and I don't say anything. I stayed awake after Jake went to bed, just thinking about everything, right? I wake up bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready for an argument. Well, actually, I was just over it at that point. At that point, I was like, all right, I can't keep gaslighting myself. Like, I believe in myself. Something is wrong here. So I literally wake up and I go, Jake, you're in love with Richard, aren't you? You're in love with Richard. I just said it. Just flat out. This man starts screaming at me that I'm gay, and the F bad word, starts projectile vomiting, rah! Starts banging his head on the walls, ripping his mattress off of his bed, and I am in a fetal position in the corner, like, and obviously, his emotional reaction told me everything I needed to know. When someone gives you an emotional reaction like that, honey, like, you're right. Like you were right. I was right. I was validated, but I was scared for my life. So I'm in the corner just watching him freak out. And then he's saying that he's going to hurt himself if I leave, and that he says he's sorry that he treated me like shit, and that he doesn't want to be with any other girl because he's going to stop hanging out with girls because he doesn't want to hurt them like he hurt me. And he's just, a demon came out of him, basically. Like, imagine that happening. Like, I still remember him projectile vomiting and be like, "Wah!" Banging his head on the walls. Like, oh my gosh. So obviously I was right from that emotional reaction. But I stay because obviously, I have love for this person and I still care about them. So I stayed and waited till he calmed down, and then even like the next few days after, he would text me and I would, text him back and just like make sure he was okay. And he was like, I'm still gonna be there for you. Like, you did so much for me. You did everything for me, and I treated you like shit. And he would always tell me. And you always gotta be suspicious about a guy who tells you this. He was like, or like a girl, whatever it is. When he would always be like, well, you make me so happy, and all I do is make you sad. Yeah, 'cause you're in love with your guy. Like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? Like, So then, a couple days after this, I was living with my cousin and my cousin's wife. And my cousin's wife and I, ex-wife now, we didn't really get along super well. There was one morning, she started yelling at me and screaming at me, and I didn't feel safe there anymore. So I packed up all my stuff and I left. I got in my car. I went to the nearest parking lot because I didn't know where to go. And I was there for probably 7 hours trying to figure out what to do. My whole family had cut contact with me because they were only listening to other people's sides of the story. Like, they were only listening to her side of the story because she's an adult. No one was considering listening to my story And I was so traumatized by how many different places I've jumped to and been around to and how many unsafe situations I've been to. I was very just manic because of everything I had been through. And I remember, like, I left voicemails on Jake's phone. I was texting him, just telling him everything that happened because he said that he would still be there for me, like I had been there for him. So I was like, oh, you know what? He probably saw my texts and my voicemails, or maybe he didn't see it. I'm just gonna drive to his apartment. So I drive 40 minutes to his apartment. I park my car. I go up to the door. I knock on the door. Ever so gently, I knock on the door. And I hear Jake start laughing. And then I hear a girl's voice start laughing. And then I hear a girl's voice start laughing. And I go, oh, they must have not heard me knock. I guess I'll knock again. I knock again. They start laughing more. And then I realize that, oh, they're laughing at me. They're laughing at me. All right, cool. Which means he saw my voicemails, he saw my texts, and he did not care that I was homeless and was laughing at me with another girl. How lovely. How lovely. So I instantly started shaking and quaking in my boots, and I kicked the door. Like that was going to do anything, but I was very angry, so I kicked the door. And then I ran back to my car crying. And that really hurt. It really hurts when someone you had so much love for, who hurt you so bad and was in love with a whole other human being and treated you like shit, but you were still supportive and still there for them after the fact because you had love for them. For them to turn around and do something so shitty to you when you're already at your lowest was just too much for me. And I didn't want to tell this story, but at this point, it's like, this man did so much damage. Oh, and then the best part was, after that, so there's this Taylor Swift song called Dear John, alright? Dear John, I've seen it all now that you're gone. Don't you think I was too young to be messed with? The girl in the dress cried the whole way home, okay? I was screaming this song while driving, okay? I was crying. You shouldn't drive while crying, by the way. Not good. And I was screaming this song. I was crying, thinking about my ex-boyfriend being in love with this guy best friend. And then a cop sees me, and I look down, and I'm going 97 miles per hour. Keep in mind, I never speed, pretty much. All my friends actually call me a grandma driver. So, this was foreign to me. I've never gotten pulled over before. I get pulled over, and I got a speeding ticket. So, I got a speeding ticket because my ex-boyfriend turned out to be in love with his guy best friend. So, thank you, Jake and Richard. Thank you for that. Assholes.